Holy shit, I just watched the first episode of Sailor Moon Crystal, and I have to confess that through this episode, I spent ultimately more time thinking about what this episode is, what this show is, than I did thinking about what was actually going on. So as most of you are probably aware, Sailor Moon is an anime show from the 90s that was extremely popular in the 90s. It's a magical girl show originally aimed at a young girl's audience, and it ran for like 5 seasons or something, like a couple hundred episodes. Very long running, very popular show of the 90s. Now, Sailor Moon is kind of famous now as a nostalgia property because obviously, like anything from the 90s, my generation grew up with it. It aired on Cartoon Network in the 90s. I remember that it used to come on right before I got home from school, so I'd always see the ending song right when I was sort of walking through the door in like elementary school. It was a big deal for anime fans in the 90s because in the 90s, anime fans just watched everything. Like people who were really into anime, the otaku in the West of the 90s, watched anything they could get their hands on. So anyone who's been around for that long has probably seen Sailor Moon. Now personally, I never watched Sailor Moon in the 90s because I was a little boy and everything to do with girls terrified or confused me, so therefore I just never watched any of it. I was aware of it, but didn't really know what it was about or anything like that. However, a couple of years ago, I started to get really into magical girl shows. I was a big fan of Cardcaptor Sakura. I watched all of that and really enjoyed it. I watched a lot of different Precure shows, the Pretty Cure franchise, and just like random episodes of a lot of those shows, and I just really enjoy the general aesthetic and feelings of magical girl shows. And in that time, I watched the first 3 episodes of Sailor Moon, and I thought they were okay. I mean, it was a fun, cute show, but it definitely didn't really even stand out among magical girl shows, because it's kind of the original, like it's one of the ones that made them popular. It sort of gave them a broader audience, but I don't know that it's remarkable in itself. Now, of course, having only seen 3 episodes, I can't say too much about it. I mean, I can't pretend like I really understand everything about the show. I know that it gets more complex in later seasons. I know that a lot of the people who worked on the later seasons are ones who then went to make Revolutionary Girl Utena, which is a phenomenal show. And I know that like the director of Sailor Moon, I think was Junichi Sato for most of it, who's a fantastic anime director. But a lot of great people got their start on Sailor Moon. It was sort of a breeding ground for a lot of excellent talent that would be pushed into anime creation in the coming decades. But the real question I guess I'm trying to get at here is, was Sailor Moon ever really that special? Because Sailor Moon Crystal certainly seems to think so. The funny thing about this is that I believe it's like a direct reincarnation of the first episode of the original show, almost. Like, it happened exactly how I remembered it. From what I've heard, this show is supposed to follow the manga more closely. I'm not even sure if the manga or the anime came first of the original. People keep saying it follows the original manga, but I'm not even sure it was originally a manga. I'd have to look it up. I'm sure someone knows, but in any case, it supposedly follows the manga, but this was pretty much the same as the first episode of the anime. Maybe that's what the first chapter of the manga is like too. The dialogue, the story, the things that happen in this episode are very simple. They're just, Usagi is this young high school girl. She's kind of bratty and obnoxious, but she gets superpowers and fights a bad guy. It's very, very simple. But now it's being handled in this like unbelievably high quality production. Like all of the art, all of the animation looks really nice in this show. They've got great backgrounds, great character art. I don't really particularly like the character designs myself. I'm not a big fan of the shoujo, like super tall, skinny, looks like they're wearing makeup at all times design sense, but it looks nice, like it's well made. There are scenes in this episode that suggest that this is a remake of a fucking classic masterpiece or something. The opening scene is like all these detailed images of space panning across and the planets and this fucking epic music, like we're watching 2001 A Fucking Space Odyssey or something. There's like the scene where Tuxedo Mask makes his debut and the music's all epic, and I was just like, whoa, this is, you know, they're really playing it up like we're remaking Sailor fucking Moon. This should be have emotional gravitas, but like I don't remember Sailor Moon it was being like that. It was just a cute show for little girls, you know? The first episode of the original Sailor Moon is just like, they had no idea it was going to be a big success or anything, so there's no reason it would be handled with that level of gravity. It was just an adorable sort of little girls show. So seeing it now, it's like this weird mental disconnect where I'm like, who is this show for? I guess it's for longtime Sailor Moon fans. It doesn't feel very modern at all, so I can't see like modern little girls watching it. I can see adults who are fans of the show from the 90s watching it. And does it work for them that it's all different, or are they just gonna go, wow, I'd rather just watch the show from the 90s where it was cute and fun and less whatever this is. I also might sound like, this might sound like a weird complaint. It might even sound like a little bit of a, like, make me kind of sound like a dick to make this complaint. But the main character, Usagi, is voiced by Kotono Mitsuishi. She has been since the original show, and she is being now. And I can't shake the feeling that she sounds like an older woman trying to play a 16-year-old girl. I can't shake it. She sounds too old to play this role. I know Kotono Mitsuishi is 47 years old. She's not exactly an old woman, but she's 47 years old. But I also know she's always had a goofy voice. She's always played roles like this with a sort of tongue-in-cheek acting style. Maybe she sounds exactly the same as she does in the original show. I haven't watched it in long enough to be sure. It kind of reminds me of her playing Ebichu, the little hamster from Orochimaru Ebichu. I think it was a hamster. Or Excel. She played Excel from Excel Saga. She plays a lot of these goofy, fast-talking, high-pitched roles. But in this particular role, she just sounds too old to play a 16-year-old. And I looked at the list of the voice actors, and everyone else is a new voice actress. All of the other Sailor Scouts, or whatever the hell they're called, all of them have new voice actresses. All of them are pretty big names who have been around for the last 5 to 10 years, who have not been around since the 90s, who are all much younger, who were born in the late 70s and mid 80s and late 80s. And Kotono Mitsuishi is born in 1967, and I just couldn't help but feeling like she sounds really old in this role. But I'd like to hear your thoughts about that, if you noticed at all, if you even noticed voice actors to begin with, if this would be anything that would bother you in the first place, but it was just weird to me. So overall, I think it's too early to really say anything about the quality of this show. I don't know what it's going for. I don't know if it's going to have more of a plot focus than the original Sailor Moon show did. I don't know if following the manga is like a better source material than the show. I've never really heard about the manga. I think it's shorter. I think it has like a definitive ending, but I really don't know much about it. So overall, I'm gonna watch more episodes of this, but it was just odd to me. I was like, is Sailor Moon actually a classic deserving of a remake of this caliber? Or is it just a fun kids show that people remember well because they grew up with it? Did it need something like this? That's ultimately the question I want to know the answer to.